Sean Strickland is one of the most entertaining fighters outside the octagon, with some pretty polarizing views to say the least. Going into UFC 276 recently, he was riding a 6-fight win streak, but his recent form would come crashing down as he came up against world-class striker Alex Pereira. Today we're discussing the trash-talking star being punched into oblivion via a terrifying KO, so stay right where you are. First up, let's take a quick look at Strickland's career. Strickland, who is not shy in airing his views, has burst onto the scene of late, but you would be forgiven for not realizing he has actually been around for quite some time. After starting his career with 13 straight wins, the North Carolina native attracted the attention of bosses at the UFC, signing for MMA's top promotion in 2014, going on to win his first 2 fights. However, a matchup with Argentine brawler Santiago Ponzinibbio in early 2015 saw Strickland move down to welterweight, but it didn't work out too well for him, losing via unanimous decision. He then won his next 3 before coming up against future welterweight king Kamaru Usman, with the Nigerian Nightmare handing Strickland his second career loss. Following this, he beat UFC veteran Court McGee next time out, before losing to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos with a highlight reel wheel kick. Strickland picked up his form again though, winning his next 6 straight, which included victories over UFC stalwart Uriah Hall, as well as Swedish fighter Jack Hermansson. His form bought him his recent matchup with Alex Pereira, who some have suggested the UFC are trying to push into title contention, with a rumored matchup with middleweight champ Israel Adesanya potentially on the horizon. And given how the fight with Strickland played out, that looks more and more likely. What have you guys made of Strickland's career so far? Let us know below. Next up, we're discussing that terrifying KO. Stay with us. Sean Strickland came up against one of the most technical strikers in the entire UFC at last weekend's UFC 276 event, but it didn't end well for the trash-talking fighter, who got his game plan completely wrong. Strickland had caused a stir at the UFC press conference just 24 hours or so before going to war with Pereira, calling out current champion Israel Adesanya for his love of manga, at one point even jokingly encouraging Pereira to step in and deal with Izzy, as he is the only man to ever knock the champ out back in their glory kickboxing days. However, Pereira didn't engage due to his lack of English and decided to instead focus on the fight, delivering a devastating knockout over Strickland, who chose to engage with hands low at chest height. This proved to be a terrible decision for Tarzan, who left the target wide open for Pereira, who wasted no time delivering a brutal left hook which rocked Strickland. He followed it up with a right hand as Strickland stumbled backwards, but the referee had seen enough, quickly waving the fight off. Strickland barely got any chance to lay a glove on Pereira, and really would have been better staying on the outside and waiting for his chance to wrestle with Pereira. Staying inside his range would have been the last thing he would have been advised to do, with some fighters calling him out for his perceived lack of awareness. What did you make of it? Next up, Izzy has had his say on Strickland's performance. As we mentioned, Izzy and Strickland were involved in a back and forth at the press conference before the fights, and Adesanya has spoken out about Strickland's performance, telling the 25-4 fighter he should have listened to him. Izzy has been riled by Strickland just hours before the event, and while Strickland tasted the canvas, Adesanya defended his title with a dominant, if not a little boring, win over Jared Cannonier, and the champ has suggested that Strickland didn't take Pereira seriously, which, if true, is pretty crazy, given what an elite kickboxer he is. Speaking last week, once the dust had settled, Adesanya said, "He should have listened to me. He should have listened to me when I told him, just focus on the guy you have in front of you, not me. He was trying to be like that idiot in the back of the class. I hated having to address that idiot. Like I'm trying to effing work and the guy I'm focused on is next to me or down the line, and this idiot, this dummy in the back of the class, just disrupting." Izzy went on to suggest that Strickland missed his opportunity to fight for the next title because he hadn't focused on Pereira. Strickland had claimed he was doing okay in the bout before being tagged, something which Izzy also disputes, warning him to not fight with your ego in the future, before Pereira landed a really simple left hook. Do you guys agree with Izzy? Next up, Chael Sonnen has a slightly different opinion on Strickland. Stay tuned. Many people derided Strickland for standing and banging with one of the most dangerous strikers in the entire UFC, and given the fact Strickland is vastly more experienced when it comes to MMA, those same detractors suggested he would have been much better off taking Powhatan down and controlling him on the ground. However, Chael Sonnen, similar to Sean in the way he is never one to shy away from an opinion, has suggested Strickland should be given credit for his game plan, despite how stupid it appears to have been in hindsight. He said, "I can't give Sean too hard of a time in fairness because the fight was so short. We don't know what was to come. We're only looking at a couple of minutes of fight here. Sean's going forward. Sean hadn't quite got down to cutting him off yet. The elevation change. Some of these things could have still been in the plan and it got cut short." After explaining what didn't happen, Sonnen then implored people to give Sean a pass. He suggested that he was only trying to do what the audience wanted to see, also explaining that if he had taken him down, the audience would lose interest a little bit. He went on to say that it's not fair that we now kick him whilst he's down. I mean, he's paid to win fights, not to entertain the crowd, something Israel Adesanya understands more than anyone. What do you guys think of Kale's words? Luke Rockhold has also weighed in on Strickland's performance. Stick around. Of course, Luke Rockhold knows a thing or two about what it takes to beat high-level strikers given his position as former middleweight champion, and he has suggested that Strickland simply proved how effing dumb he is after his bout with Pereira. Rockhold wasn't at all impressed with Strickland's performance, suggesting he got conned by the system. The pair were supposed to face each other late last year, but Rockhold had to pull out due to injury, with Strickland instead going on to fight Jack Hermanson. And assessing Strickland's latest performance against Pereira, Rockhold said, "Sean, he just proved how effing dumb he is. The system wanted him to try to stand with him and prove that stupid point, and he just fell for it. It happens. It happens to a lot of people. You try to overprove yourself and do something stupid. That's the game. That's the fight game. It's a mental effing battle, and he lost the battle." Rockhold is set to take on Brazilian fighter Paulo Costa at UFC 278 in a few weeks' time, so it will be interesting to see what he brings to the table after a layoff of more than 3 years. Rockhold hasn't been seen since back-to-back losses against Yoel Romero, which was actually for the interim middleweight title back in February 2019, as well as his light heavyweight debut against Jan Blachowicz a few months later. What did you guys think of Luke's comments? And finally, Izzy has suggested we have a date for the Pereira fight. Alex Pereira has been touted as possibly the only man who can bring to an end Stylebender's reign, as he holds a pair of wins over the current champ, although that was in the Glory kickboxing promotion. However, as we know, Adesanya generally stands and strikes with his opponents, so that should play into the hands of Pereira, who doesn't like to take his opponents down either. And Izzy has today, July 11th, suggested that the UFC as well as both parties have agreed a date for what will be his 6th title defense. He said, "We've got a date. We've already sussed it out. We're already planning. We're sussed with it." And responding to the often spoken of knockout loss against Pereira more than 5 years ago, Adesanya said, "I literally just let that go. It didn't take me long to be like, oh, that happened. Actually, after the fight, it wasn't long before I said, I'm fine. People still love me. My family still loves me." Who do you guys have in this one? As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to swing by again next time for some more fun and games. And why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video, whilst also subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on more great videos in the future. Bye, guys.